I see that what like Candace and other people have done is sort of play on the sort of post-traumatic stress and trauma of past entanglements that America's been involved in that didn't go right, the wrong diagnoses for the war on terror, like the war in Iraq, whereas by when you find the right diagnoses, like Iran and all these people say, I just don't want to fight it. It's like if you were fighting cancer by treating the wrong area over here, you're like, okay, that was bad. But then when you find the cancer, you don't just ignore it. Yeah. You treat it because we actually found it. It doesn't mean your misdiagnoses were wrong, but now it's like, don't diagnose anything anymore. Yeah. And they're hiding behind this argument of, I'm just against foreign aid. And I'm like, is that why you can't stop talking about Israel and the Jews, because you're against foreign aid? Yeah. And so there's a lot of things to hide behind that I think attract a lot of people organically to say, I don't want to be involved in any Ukraine, Israel, nothing. And especially while America feels like it's in decline and needs to be brought back, which is the MAGA spirit. Yeah, yeah. So it does attract a lot of this organic stuff, which is very troubling. Plus the lack of a sort of maybe a Christian identity that's been lost.
Well, don't forget like the abuse we just went through with COVID and all the identity politics and everything else, right?
The institutional collapse.
The institutional collapse, so they can play in this. Yeah. So an organic feature is that people want cults. People who have narcissistic tendencies want cults. They want huge followings. They want those followings to support them, to reflect back upon them, to give them money, to give them accolades, to get them opportunities. And so if we want to stay in the total organic domain, you can just see, there's a character like Candace who sees maybe she's not particularly scrupulous. She sees the shot she can shoot. She sees a series of plays that she can make and that she can get a completely committed following. Because when you get somebody to follow you, if you say something right and people support you, and then you say something else right and they support you, and then you say something wrong, a bunch of them might leave. But if you say something wrong and people support you, boy, they're locked in. Because now they're like, they put their own pride on the line, their own sense on the line to defend you. So they were committed for reasons other than that you were right. They were committed because they were emotionally attached to you or something like that. So this is exactly what the cult leader is looking for.
And then there's no standards.
If you start driving it deeper and deeper and deeper into, taboo or no-go territory, then you have a bunch of people who are more or less stuck with you, right? And so they're going to have high loyalty, high commitment, and so there's a bunch of people who's probably saw this opportunity to shoot their shots and do that. Then you have people like Tucker Carlson. Do I think he's building a cult? The answer, maybe. I don't know how narcissistic he is. We can make some guesses. But on October 7th, 2023, the terrible things happened. And on October 8th, I said I knew Israel was going to retaliate with force, and it has the capacity to retaliate with force. And I was like, here comes Gaza Floyd. That's what I called it, like the George Floyd. So I knew that the left was going to have this bananas like Palestinian flag, explosion, which we saw. I didn't realize actually that the right was going to use the same exact thing until Candace came out, like literally, I think it was like the next day or within a few days. I'm aware. And started pushing it, and with the whole Christ is King moniker attached to it as like her like armor of God was, I said Christ is King, so you can't be mad at me that I'm like going after Israel and not just Israel in a really suspicious way. And so that's when I kind of said, all right, the right's going to go full blast on this too, and it's probably going to be being paid for by the same people on both sides. We know that the protests on the left, we know the energy's there, but we also know that the organizational principles and the money are not like these college kids are rich, but they're not spending their own money or mommy or daddy's money to have a protest over here at Columbia. They're going to get funded by, as we've seen now, proof has come out, these various Islamic nations and organizations. You got San Francisco State University literally had a Hamas terrorist come and speak recently and meet with students. And it's like, okay, so we know that there's like this funded thing on the left. Well, I was like, well, there's going to be a funded thing on the right. Of course there is, and this is going to be a huge drive. And like you said, the left makes it about Israel. They make it about settler colonialism and that, this was a Western imperial project that was inserted in. They do actually say that Jews made themselves into white people. But they don't hate Jews directly. There's an indirect hatred of Jews on the left.
But if they can frame Israel as white versus less white people,
that's right.
They can hate the Jews that are whites.
But it's always by two steps, right? You have to go white then Jew or Israel then Jew.
Right.
But the right does the one step and the two step, and the one step is it's the Jews. There's all these conspiracy theories, all the way back to the protocols. Have you read the protocols? It's the Frankus. It's something.
Yeah.
They don't even have the sophistication to talk about actual, Jewish mystical heresies like Lurianic Kabbalah or something like that. They don't have the sophistication to talk about this. Yeah. It's the Frankus. It's the Khazarians or whatever, some nonsense.
And making this also, just like it's a Christian position to be anti-Israel. It's all of a sudden this tribal stance.
That's right.
Candace certainly did that.
That's when she hid behind Christ as King like a sword and a shield. And the thing is it's like, the tribalism, you derail me a little bit because it's so important that it's how they've done it. No, it's good. We're talking here. We're talking. Yeah. But
that's what I think.
But they went after the Jews on they control the world conspiracy theories, all this rehashed crap from whether it's the Soviets in the 50s and 60s after Israel got established. The Soviets set up the PFLP, the Popular Front Communist, by the way, for the liberation of Palestine, which became the PLO, which mixed with the Muslim Brotherhood and became Hamas. It was a Soviet creation in the first place. I even debated a communist about this at one point, and he was like, "Oh yeah, that was a Soviet creation." He didn't even try to challenge it. He's like, "That was the communists. You're right." And then you got all this Nazi tropes that have come back, and then of course we can go back to the Russian Tsar before the Bolsheviks took over with trying to blame Jews for everything. We could even probably go back to Marx when his essay, on the Jewish question or whatever, which is, how do you fix the Jewish problem in Germany? Marx wrote, well, you get rid of the Jews. That's how. It says you cure the Jew of Judaism and you cure the world of Jews.
Erasure, Jewish erasure.
That's right. Yeah.
And then in one form or another, by death or by assimilation or
so Candace and all these characters come out and they trot out these new to their audience, rehashed, warmed over conspiracy theories from the last, say, 150 years about Jews, in some cases probably older as well. And the goal was exactly what you said, was to split MAGA on the issue of Israel, which has always been a very American conservatives for a long time have been very pro-Israel, at least since the 60s and probably before that. Well, the goal was to just break them right down the middle on that. And whether that's the Buchananite fringe with Tucker Carlson, whether that's whatever the hell Candace is.
Well, maybe I missed something, but why do they want to split it? What's the benefit of splitting it?
Let me disillusion you for a minute, or disabuse you of an assumption. You think that these people, because they're on the right, want Trump to succeed. Okay. I think that they are funded by foreign governments and are deep state and are just assholes who never liked him in the first place, who want him to fail. But you're right, to your point. The term anti-Semitism was getting thrown around, and the ADL isn't doing anybody any favors. In fact, they're like everybody's worst enemy. By throwing this term around where it doesn't apply in ways that just so happen where Candace is gaining ground, she has firm ground to stand on, you throw the word around in ways that are not accurate, and it doesn't just look woke, it is woke in a very real way. And it doesn't do anybody any favors, and obviously Candace is able to exploit this, and then Ian and the rest of them are able to exploit it. We're just asking questions. Why aren't we allowed to ask these questions?
And it makes it that much harder to call that out.
And it's like
a cry wolf thing. You're
I would love to ask some questions about what in the world Netanyahu was doing during COVID. Arguably you have New Zealand that had worse policies, Victoria within Australia, but not all of Australia, that had stricter policies. It's like very few places in the world went harder core than Israel. And why? What are we going to do about that?
Well, in a post-October 7th world, it's just more radioactive because Israel is in this survival mode. So it's like someone getting the crap kicked out of them and get invaded, and they're like, wait a minute, I got to talk about your tax evasion.
Yeah. By the way, what was with the needles? No, I get that. And this is this weird thing. Post-October 7th, the whole conversation gets this weird inflammation to it. You can't criticize, and that's not even in the war effort, which I'm pretty well convinced that Israel's run about the cleanest war that you can run, especially against an opponent that believes in human shields and children as shields and things like that.
And he's back in.
And
hey guys, thanks so much for watching. If you've made it this far, we want to let you know that Ami's House is now on Patreon. We love doing extra content, bonus footage with every episode. The best way to support us is to head on over to Patreon, become a guest, and support the show for $5 a month.
If you like watching Ami cut me off, Patreon is
Patreon.com/Ami's House for bonus content. Thanks so much for your support, and become a guest.